In this lesson, we're going to take a look at doing a beverage shot, and specifically, we're going to do a very, very close-up beverage shot. When I first got out of college in 1978, I went to college in Atlanta. Being in Atlanta, what did I get to do? Went to work in a Coca-Cola photography studio. My first 2 years out of school, I was in the darkroom and had some great photographers that were in the studio shooting that I learned from, assisting. And my job was to actually do some combination work on film for what they shot in the studio. In those days, they would shoot a Coca-Cola shot, but they would also shoot a shot of Alka-Seltzer on the top of a glass just to get the fizz. And what they would do is they would backlight it on felt and just drop 5 or 6 Alka-Seltzers in a glass of water and shoot the bubbles coming off the top of the glass. And my job on film was to take the original Coca-Cola shot and this black background with white spritz coming out and literally merge the two together. Now, back then, we didn't have Photoshop. It wasn't done with a blend mode and things like that. It was physically done with masking. It was kind of tough stuff. And it was done in a larger with a pin register mask. So that was my thing. And on the door of my darkroom, it said, Jim DiVitale, Fizz Transfer Technician. So that's my job, transferring the fizz. Well, we don't do the fizz. That kind of part died out after the 70s. They didn't do too much of that. But the tricks of how to really prep a beverage glass for shooting really stayed on, and I learned from one of the very, very best Coca-Cola people. And so what we're going to do is a very super close-up shot. I've got a Coke glass. Of course, I've got some, when I go over some of the things that we'll use, I'm not sure exactly what we'll use, but we'll use some of this. We are using fake ice cubes. These are purchased at different places. One of them is Ten Grove, which is one of the supplies. Fly houses are out of New York, and they supply snow and ice cubes and so forth. You don't want to use real ice because real ice doesn't have this beautiful crystal look, and plus it melts while you're working. Of course, these will not melt. Those will stay here for us. And I got a couple different sizes inside the glass. My particular formula is going to involve 2 sprays on the glass to give it this really cold look. The first thing we're going to do is give it a coat of what's called Krylon Crystal Clear. This will give it a slightly matted, but sort of not frosted, but just slightly cold frosted type of look. Gives me a very, very clean base to work with. Once that dries, then this will sound kind of strange, we're going to use a little bit of dabs of spray mount. Now what this does is this, if you keep it away and we're going to spray very, very lightly on the glass, it's going to put little teeny dots of glue over the crystal clear. The crystal clear kind of waterproofs the glass and keeps it clean. With the frost look, this is going to give the water droplets a little something to click to actually adhere to. Now, you know, you've always heard that people use a lot of glycerin. Glycerin is not what makes it bead up, and glycerin is not what gives you the look. Glycerin just basically stays for a long period of time if you were going to do a shoot and then the water actually evaporates and the glycerin stays behind. So this would allow you to literally spray a glass and put it on a shelf and then come back a week later and that spritz and those water droplets would still be sitting there adhered to the glass. We're not worried about that today, so I'm just going to show you that you can do it with just plain water. I've got a very, very small little spritzer that does a nice little spray. It's a very, very fine, fine mist, so hopefully we'll get a very good look on that. And we're not really going for the whole glass today. We're going for a very, very close-up sort of a macro shot. So I've got the 1DS Mark III set up, tethered to the computer. We're using, of course, the Canon utility software to connect the two. And we're using the Canon 100mm 2.8 macro lens, which allows me, number one, to get very close without being right in its face, have a chance to work the lights in, and allows me to focus very, very closely at 100mm, so we're blowing the image up. So one of the first things I'm going to do, just to make sure we're in the ballpark, is check my lighting and get a shot on the screen. We switched over to using what's called a strip light. This strip light is a very, very narrow beam of light. It'll come in. I don't really expect to see, because how close we are, I don't really expect to see a lot of specular highlights in the glass. So this isn't really as much about getting just the right beam of light, although if I was backing up and shooting more of an overall shot, this would be a nice light because it has a very, very thin specular highlight, and that's what we're looking for. We're very concerned with the right type of specular highlight, the right type of highlight, whether it's specular or broad highlight or whatever we're using, to match the type of formula lighting that we're doing. So consumers are expected to, they expect this to look a certain way, and we need to make sure we follow that for the client. So we're sort of doing a sort of a mock-up Coke this might be like a poster ad that we would have very, very super close-up spritz, and they might use other inset shots beneath it. So I think we should have a lot of fun with this. So the first thing we're going to do is we have some mirrors and some cards. We'll go over that in a minute. But first thing we want to do is just shoot the image. I've also got a spotlight. I'm not sure if I'm going to use this or not until I actually start shooting some, but I've got a spotlight with a grid spot, a narrow beam of light coming down. We'll turn that on now. And reach back here. And what that's going to help do is it's going to put a lot of specular highlights in the actual glass ice cubes and so forth. And how powerful, we'll have to just see how that works. Now, I have an array of different mirrors and reflective surfaces to work with. One of the things we probably will use mostly is just basic silver card. This has got, you can get this at any art store. It is just a silver reflective, very thin card. It allows me to cut it into different shapes. And we're going to put that behind the glass. And we may, until I start seeing how we work it, I may use the top light to reflect it, or I may use the side light to reflect it. I'm probably, because we're doing such a close-up, I'm not going to cut it down real small. If you were doing an overall shot, I would then have to cut this down to fit just behind it. But because I don't have to see the sides of the glass, to start with, I'm going to leave it full size. And the reason is, if I don't have to see around the sides of the glass, this is going to give me more coverage to be a wider source of light passing through the Coke. We have a can of Coke ready to go, and I also have some water in case I need to sort of water it down. So let's just start by first just taking a quick shot. We have the screen ready to go, and we'll take a shot here and see what kind of look we get. And we might literally take several images along the way to get it. So this is actually a reasonably good starting point. I'm going to have to pull the glass out anyway, so I'm not too concerned about its position yet. But that's about how close I want. I'm focusing literally on the type, on the front of the glass. So in this case, I probably want to see some depth of field. I won't know until I actually start shooting, but I can control how deep I go into the glass by picking the appropriate f-stop. If I use a wide stop of about 2.8 to 5.6, I'll get the type sharp and the cubes will go out. If I use 16 to 22, smaller aperture, more depth of field, I'll allow to see deeper into the glass. So for a starting point, I'm at 1/25 of a second at f22, a lot of depth of field. We're at a 100 ISO. So let's go ahead and start prepping the glass. Now, to prep the glass, first thing I want to do is I'm going to put something out here just to mark where the glass was. I'll just use these mirrors to say that is the position of the overall glass. And so we don't have to reinvent the wheel to bring that back. So we know where that belongs. And the first thing I'll do is get the crystal clear. And I'm going to be very careful. Actually, I'll probably just spray it on the edge of the table right here. Let me move this other stuff a little bit out of our way. And we'll just use the table here. We'll give it a good shake so it's mixed up really well. And then we're going to just stay pretty far away and just give it a couple of good shots, especially going on this. Just build it up slowly. And I'll come around to the side of the glass over here. I'll probably do it a little bit in the back just because it actually diffuses it a little bit when the light's coming through. Of course, we started by cleaning the glass very good with some glass cleaner. I'm going to go across the front, give it some nice frost look. And that should be plenty right there. So we'll let that dry for just a minute. And we want to make sure that it's good and dry before we do the next step. So you want to let like about a minute or two go by till we get the point where it's good and dry, because we don't want the next spray to kind of, to make it too wet. Looks like it's sprayed really nice and even, and it's got that just slightly frosted look. I don't want it to look like the glass was in the refrigerator, but I want it to look, when you first drop really cold liquid into a glass with ice, it just first has this tend to slightly give about a slight frosting to it. That's the look we're trying to get today. The next step is 3M spray mount. This is just a fine mist. Now what this is going to do is put little teeny drops of glue that you say, well, maybe that's going to show up as specks in the photograph, but technically where every little drop of glue is, that's where one of the beads of water is going to stick to, because when that bead hits, it needs something to sort of hold it in place and not sort of fly and sort of drip down the glass. So I'm just going to very, very lightly give it a couple of shots. Little short little spurts, because you don't want it to be very heavy. I'll come around this side a little bit. Want to make sure and get the sides good, because that's where it's going to show. And this is also going to add a little more frosting effect to it. And I can see little dots on there, but again, when we do the real shot, you're not going to see that because it's going to look like little drops of water. Okay, now that's pretty good. I think we've got our 2 sprays done. We'll put those out of the way. Now the next thing we'll do is, I can sort of handle it from the back of the glass. Let's go ahead and bring that back into the set. And I'm going to go ahead and change over to the live video feed. I can kind of see where we are if I need to reposition it. I can literally focus the lens. I can see it as I'm getting sharper here. That's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and change the white balance to be the proper white balance to tungsten for the visual here. So that'll give me a little closer. It's very gray. We don't have any reflections coming through it, and I'm not sure how bright we need to make that tight. So we'll have to see once we actually get the actual liquid in there what we need to do from here. So the next step would be to go ahead and get some liquid in here, and whether we need some with a, we might have to put some water in there. I'll be able to see once we start loading it in. We don't want too much carbonation in there. You can see on the live focus what's going on there. I have a little syringe. If I need to take some out, I can syringe out the liquid and put, actually, I like the little bit, that's really cool right there. Maybe I can just, you can't shoot with the live focus though, but that's kind of interesting. I like what's going on right there. We need to work kind of fast because it's kind of looking interesting. Let's go ahead and put our silver card back here and see what we're looking like. Now I'm going to try to stand over here so you can see, but as I'm looking at the screen, I have to look at the camera. I can see just how much light I'm getting through here. And right now I'm getting some pretty direct light right from the side light. You can see as I open that up, and I just adjust my spot grid a little bit, drop that down into the lens. I don't want to get it flary, so you just have to get just the right amount of light and want some color through there. Now, I like the total control of it, so if I have enough exposures, I can bring as much color through there as I need to. I don't like the way that one ice cube looks. I'm just going to move that around a little bit. A little bit there. I'm kind of liking what's going on here. I'll go ahead and top it off a little more. I don't want to see the top end. And we're focusing on the lens, right on the type there. I'm going to focus right on the Enjoy trademark type right there. And that is looking fairly good. I'm getting a specular highlight on this side, so I'm going to I want a small light source. I'm going to bring this back a little bit. And you can see as I move that light source around, I can see right on my screen where that source goes. I'm kind of putting that, I'm going to actually backlight it a little bit more this way. And you can see right here, I'm watching the specular highlight made by the light source to kind of come right through there. And let's just take a quick shot. Well, actually, let me go ahead and spritz it because we're about ready. It looks like we're really ready to go. Let's go ahead and get our spritzer. We're going to go ahead and use a very fine mist spritzer. I'm just using a little spritzer bottle, and it's just got water in it. And I'm going to come in here and just give it a couple of, from far away. First, I like to do a kind of a mist from far away, then I go in closer and give it a few more drops of water. And we're starting to see some nice spritz going on in here. It's sort of an art to it that I watch many good Coca-Cola photographers do. That's what I'm kind of looking for, is that nice spread where you have some big drops, some little drops. And we got to take off our live focus first. Let's do that. And we are ready for the real shot. And we'll go ahead and use our release here. I like what's going on. Let's get it to be a little, I'm going to bump the ISO up to, I can really go up to 400 or 500. I'm going to put it 400, and I think we're also going to take this top light and go up a little bit here too. About a stop and a third. The spray mount is going to keep that stuff. Now we're really a little overexposed now, so now I can see, but it's kind of nice to be overexposed sometimes just to see what's going on, and then we'll adjust our exposure back down. And as I look there, I'm happy with the spritz look. I'm going to go ahead, and since I'm fairly good there, I'll just drop the ISO of the camera back down a little bit. So the beauty of this is I'm changing film speed so easily. Let's drop a stop down. This should come in much richer color, which it is. It's about halfway in between. I like the specular part of that, and I like the color. So I think what we'll have to do also is have a little white card. So let me get a little white card over here. And I will bring in a little bit of a specular, just a little more light. It's going to block your view here, but I'm just going to put this right here for a second, just at the moment of shooting. Just take one quick shot here. We'll see the difference on the screen now with a little bit of fill light. This might be too much, but it should drop in a little more light in the Coke. It's a little overlit now, so we have to find a happy medium. I don't want it to be the Coke type to be like flat white. I want to have a left to right. Whenever we're dealing with trying to create shape, we're trying to create a left to right circular shape. So round things need to look round. So I'll pull this back a good bit, shoot another one with it much farther back. It's going to add a little white highlight to that type, but the glass will not be so hot. Now we're getting somewhere. I'm very pleased with that look right here. I'm liking the heavy part of the sweat. I don't really know if there's anything else we need to do to this. I may just try, since we have it set up, I may just try a couple of other positions with the actual, just to see if I can get a few more highlights in there. I'm going to drop the actual silver card back a little bit more. That's what I was looking for. Now I may only use, this is what I was looking for here. Now with this one, I may only use just a couple of portions of it. Watch this area right in here on the top of the glass. As I take the next shot, I'm getting, now of course, obviously you got to fix that, but I'm liking this part right here. I might want to use just some of that. Well, obviously I've got a little too much on the side, didn't see that. And I'm going to just turn it just a little bit, like so. Oh, that's great, right there. And I may just use some dashes of color. I may not use the whole thing, but I may use just a little. Now everything should be pretty much locked in, so I can bring this in as a second layer and just brush just a few highlights. Now I'm letting it be a little bit more than I need because I'm only going to use about 20 or 30% of it. So being a little bright is okay. Let me come down here, just a few more shots. I'll keep my trigger in my hand here, and I'm just going to look through the camera and just try a couple of different trigger shots, just a couple of shots that are letting it out a little bit differently. And I may use, I'm watching for different reflections, like right here. Watch this one. This one I really like for this area right here. So I may use just little spurts of this, and I brush that in to give me the correct shot. So when I get finished, we're trying to make a beautiful sort of a background shot that they may end up using. You'd use this on a menu board or something where you're going to add other photographs to it. So we're going to end up taking this into Photoshop and just finishing it off. But we've got all the pieces that we need to make this happen. And again, if we need to, we can actually run, if we needed to, I've got some smaller mirrors I use. These I found at like Bed Bath & Beyond for a couple of dollars, and they're nice on stands. So if you need to, you can come in the back and just put little blips of light on things. This is kind of interesting right here. These are the type of small attachments that we use, and we don't really know until we actually get into the shot which ones we have, but you want to basically have them all ready to go so you can just grab them if you need small mirrors or a bigger card or so forth. So this is pretty much what we need to, and it's a very standard shot, whether it's Coke or any other type of liquid. This is just a real great formula to get some really outstanding lighting on your beverage shots.